Hello and welcome. This is the premiere podcast episode for Talk is Jeep. I'm joined with my friend Tom Chartrand.
Hello.
My name is Art Aldridge. We are both Jeep owners.
Many Jeeps. Yes.
Many Jeeps?
Many Jeeps.
How many Jeeps have you owned?
We have owned, I want to say at least 5.
Now,
Grand Cherokees, Cherokee Sports, Wranglers.
You consider any Jeep badged vehicle a Jeep?
The ones I've owned, yes.
I consider only the CJs and the Wrangler family Jeeps. Everything else is not quite a Jeep.
Well, no, I agree. For the purposes of what we enjoy about a Jeep, absolutely.
Okay.
CJ, TJ, YJ, yeah.
Yeah, all the J's.
Yes.
Just not the JE.
And the JLs. JL's fine.
Now, I bought my first Jeep in 1990. It was a YJ. It was the first new vehicle I ever owned. I was fresh out of college. I had a pocket full of money. And that Jeep, which was the bare bones, didn't even have a carpet, cost me $12,000.
Oh, wow.
And it was a white two-door base model. I don't think they called it the S or Sport. It was just the Wrangler. And it was the cheapest Jeep you can get. Had no air, had, soft top, had half doors with
you take the top down. That's your
canvas uppers. And I loved that Jeep, drove it into the ground.
Yep.
And then I got married and I sold it. In those days, I didn't know, as they say, from Shinola. But I bought the Jeep and I didn't quite understand that, the soft top wasn't, those early soft tops were not great.
Right.
They were not great. So I bought a aftermarket hard top and doors. I bought an Acme hard top and doors. And there were a couple
no
of
rugged
problems.
ridge back then?
No, not back then. So the doors, they were fiberglass. And they had the Burger King drive-through window slider. So it wasn't a roll-down window. It just slid.
Oh, God.
And so you didn't have the full width of the window to work with as you pulled up to a drive-through or a bank. You had half of a width of your door to get anything in and out of your vehicle through the window. Wow. So not ideal, but I loved that Jeep. And I had, I think, 3 sets of rims and 8 tops and, just lots of parts. And you do collect parts as a Jeep owner. And that was something that I wasn't fully aware of back then. I just sort of fell into it.
When you jumped into it, right?
But then I sold it all. I got married. And then from that day forward, I had always jonesed for a Jeep.
Right.
Flash forward 3 years ago, I turned 50, and as a birthday present to myself, because no one else cared, I said, I'm going to buy myself a Jeep. And I went out and I bought a JL, brand new 2018 JL, and it's the unicorn of JLs at the time. It's a 2-door Sport S 6-speed.
6-speed, right. That's the main thing.
You couldn't find them anywhere, the 6-speeds. And I was adamant about having a manual transmission Jeep. I drove about 300 miles to get it in Maryland.
It was worth every mile.
Worth every mile. And I am back in the Jeep family, and I've been enjoying it and using it on Jamborees, and we're going to lead into where we are today, which is on the eve of a Jeep Jamboree.
Literally, yeah.
And this is your first,
right?
And we're going to talk about that. But let me first hear, Tom, your Jeep history, your pedigree in the Jeep world.
Mine started years ago. It was an 01 Jeep Wrangler X, and I think it was the first year they did the X, which was a bare bones Jeep. Found it. It had just been turned in as a used car because with 1,600 miles, a woman had gotten pregnant, and found out she didn't want to be driving around pregnant in a Jeep. And it was just a great opportunity. Got a great deal on a Jeep, and it was a second car for me and my family. And my kids, our Jeep has always been a beach vehicle for me. I live on Cape Cod, and it was an opportunity to drive out on Nauset Beach or Sandy Neck Beach. And that's the level to which I Jeeped. You know, we enjoyed it, the top down, got the sound system, did all this stuff, but never took it to the level of the Jeep Jamboree people who go way above that to be able to do all that other hardcore stuff. But a Jeep just meant being free, being out in the open, being able to enjoy music and a lifestyle being out in the open. That was something that, you know, was incredible. And I've shared that with my family for years. And I think I handed that Jeep off to my son in maybe 2015, 14 or 15. And that Jeep pulled up 250,000 miles after we beached it for years. And all of our kids have enjoyed it. And, that's the extent. There weren't many modifications. There weren't many things that weren't just esoteric on the front just for style and look. And I guess we'll talk about where we are now with our current Jeeps, but it's just been something that we loved. And the kids all had Cherokee Sports, and we've had Grand Cherokees, and it's just the Jeep has been something that we've loved.
You know, we haven't known each other for decades,
right?
But through our work, we've become friends. I invited you to join me on a road trip in the middle of a pandemic.
Right in the height of it.
Right in the height of it. It was a little sketchy, a little questionable, but we drove. You drove down from Cape Cod to New York, where I live, right. And then the two of us in my JL Wrangler drove to Tennessee to do a Jeep Jamboree at the Windrock Park.
And it was like a great escape. It felt like we were getting away from the horror that we were going through.
It was a really odd time to be getting away because it was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of contradiction in rules. If you remember, we could not get inside a Starbucks from the time we left New York until we got to Tennessee. And then it was like there was no COVID.
No rules. Yeah.
But anyway, that was your first Jeep Jamboree.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, I had never been on a Jeep Jamboree until I got my JL. When I got my JL, I actually did a charity Jeep ride for a Wounded Warriors Foundation where we went and took vets on little Jeep trip up the trail. And my Jeep was probably 2 months old.
Okay.
And they took us on this trail. It was supposed to be really easy. It was not. It was actually pretty intense.
It was more than you expected.
And one of the Jeeps in the group actually rolled over right in front of me. So I was sort of thrown into this sort of off-road world. I had always wanted to do a Jeep Jamboree and never did.
Right.
My off-roading experience in my YJ was basically driving on a highway that was being built and it was under construction, and we would drive on the gravel and the dirt hills and the stuff before they paved it. That was my Jeep experience, and so I was pretty much a novice. But I went in 2019 and did my first Jeep Jamboree and fell in love with the Jeep even more than I had. I loved the Jeep, going into it, but had a new respect for the vehicle.
Right.
And then I said, hey, would you go with me on this trip? Because it was in the middle of COVID and we weren't working. And I was like, what else am I going to do besides sit at home and, go crazy?
Right. Find something, explore something new. Yeah.
So we drove 12 hours in the Jeep, which, the new Jeeps are very
comfortable
yes. and savvy on the highway. They're modern, way more than my YJ ever was,
or any of my TJs. Yeah,
but it was still a rough go, loud, the roar of the tires, the whole bit.
Well, you had big tires.
I had mud terrain tires, so they're not exactly quiet. And we had to stop every 2 hours for gas, but that's
Yes,
besides the point. That actually worked out in our favor.
It did, yeah. We could take shifts and
But here's the most interesting thing I think that I observed besides the Jeep. Being at that event, being around the Jeeps, seeing the Jeeps, you then had a Jeep fever.
absolutely, absolutely. I had missed the Jeep that I hadn't had for so long, and I was seeing all these Jeeps and even ones that looked like my old one, and I'm like, God, it would be good to be able to enjoy that. And again, we were in the middle of COVID, and I'm like, all right, we can't travel anywhere. I would love to be back on the beach again. How do I find my TJ to get back on the beach? And, we were out there enjoying Tennessee, and I hear one of our trail guides say, I just want to get rid of my Jeep. I got to sell it. I want to get a Gladiator. And I'm like, oh, that would be so fun on the beach. How am I going to make this happen? F you, Art. You've brought me into this. I just want to get a Jeep. And it sparked it all up. And I shared it with Melissa and my wife.
You almost came home with the
I
Jeep.
almost came. Yeah, exactly.
Despite your wife's concerns.
And she was so right. Not that Jeep.
But I mean, literally, it struck an emotional chord.
Yeah, it did.
As I think anyone who owns a Jeep, if you're not feeling an emotional connection to it, then you probably made a mistake in buying it in the first place.
Right. Right.
But so what was the continuation of your Jeep fever story?
Well, it was funny because we had talked about it for a while. It would be great. COVID's happening. We don't know when it's going to end. The days we would be able to go out on the beach with our Jeep were so fun. We should consider it. And, that pulled me through the whole Jeep Jamboree. I'm looking at all these Jeeps going, yes, I love that one. I love that one. We got to get one. We've got to find a way to do it. So it really sparked at least a fever to find out what's the right Jeep. How can we do it? Do I want to get a new one? Do I want to get a used one? What's the right one? And with my wife being into it with me, it really, sparked my interest in trying to find out how I can do it, And, I wanted to get this one Jeep that we had seen, this Rubicon. It was all trail ready. And obviously being on the trail, I was like, this is the one I want, And
it was built by a trail guide for the Jeep Jamboree. So you knew it was built well.
Right. And the price point was a little bit high. And in talking about it and, supporting what we wanted, it was like, all right, we're going to do 90% of our Jeeping on the beach. So let's come down from the clouds of this trail ready built up Jeep and consider one. And I had found this guy on Facebook in South Carolina that built out old TJs and studied what he did and actually found my dream Jeep. And it turned out that this dream Jeep was one that we had rented on our honeymoon. It was same color, light metal khaki, and didn't find this out until after we had bought this Jeep. But it just seems that it was the right decision to make. It was a great TJ Sahara. He had a 4-inch lift on it. It was clean. It was neat. It wasn't overbuilt. It was a good beach Jeep. It was something that, you could maybe do a Jeep Jamboree with. And it seemed like the perfect fit. And it filled every need.
All right. So stepping back to that Tennessee event in 2020, you were a passenger in my Jeep. That was the first Jeep event that I did after modifying my Jeep.
Right.
The first Jeep Jam I did was in 2019 in the Killington Mountains, and my Jeep was stock. It was a Sport S.
And wait, hey, we're in Killington right now.
We are in Killington right now, and we'll get to that. Patience, Grasshopper.
Absolutely.
So my Jeep at the time in 2019, it was basically a year old. I didn't really know a lot myself. I wanted more experience. So
right. Not without some fear, right? I mean,
a lot of fear. Where I live in New York, there's not an immediate accessibility to trails. You have to drive, 3 hours plus to do legal off-roading as far as I am aware. And so I decided to do a Jeep Jamboree in Killington. It was a last minute thing. I was on a wait list and I got in. They called me and said, next week you're in if you want.
Up.
And I showed
Yeah.
up. And I brought my son, who was probably 18 at the time. Unwillingly, he came. And I lined up in the line, and my Jeep was the littlest of these monsters.
The saddest,
The
shortest,
saddest
unbuilt.
stock, Jeep. It was an eye-opener for me because I realized how capable this factory Jeep was. No
Right.
lockers, not even, mud terrain tires, just all-terrain tires. The only thing I think I did to the Jeep was I put on sway bar disconnects. And I did it at the last minute because I had read that helps a lot.
Right.
So that was the only mod that I had. And my Jeep got banged around, smashed. I didn't bust anything and I didn't break anything that I couldn't drive at home, but there was a lot of noise. And the trails were pretty much more than I had anticipated, and I didn't think my vehicle could even make it through some of it, but it did.
Oh, boy.
And I was very impressed. Well, I asked you as a passenger
Yeah.
in the Jeep in Tennessee, what were your impressions of, now at that point my Jeep was modified.
Right.
It had 35-inch tires. It had a 3.5-inch Terraflex lift. It had the JKS sway bar disconnects. But that was basically the extent of the modification.
Okay.
It had rock slide engineering sliders on it, but that was really it. But what were your impressions as a passenger during that event?
I want to say I think the tires and the lift made all the difference because it seemed as though there was nothing it couldn't get around. You took it slowly, you took it carefully, and I don't think there was anything that was concerning on that ride. Now, I don't know if that was the level of the trails in Tennessee or what, but we were very video centric. We were taking a ton of video and doing this and that, but there was never a point on the ride that I thought, oh boy, we're in a situation that's tenuous or scary. You seem to be able to get over all of the rocks and the river. I mean, so I didn't feel any of the fear you might have felt in your first one when it was stuck.
I mean, what were your impressions about the Jeep at that point, the vehicle itself? Like, were you impressed with its capabilities? Were you, indifferent? Like, what were your thoughts? Because at that point, you hadn't bought a Jeep. You were not a Jeep owner
At that time. Right,
So, like,
right.
what was going through your head about the actual Jeep itself?
I was blown away at how comfortable it was. I mean, it rode smoothly. Whatever you had done with a lift and everything else, it was able to get through everything. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome. You were able to get over all the trails, all the rocks, everything that would happen. And you were out there helping people, having only been on, I want to say it was your second, right? Jamboree. You know what to look for with people. And it felt like, a venture that was fun. You were conquering different things. This vehicle was, doing things it was intended to do with a little bit of help after some of your modifications. And it was just juicing what, we had already talked about as far as getting a beach Jeep and taking it a little bit further. Maybe I can do this. Maybe, this kind of stuff can, be something we can look forward to. And especially at the time, it was like, what do we have? We can't travel. It's COVID. Things are going on, but we can get on the beach. We can get on a trail. We can go and be by ourselves and enjoy this vehicle that was built, and better than many other vehicles off-road, enjoy a day in nature,
So you go home from that Jeep Jamboree. You didn't buy the Jeep that I thought you were going to buy. I really thought you were going to leave.
It was close.
Leave Tennessee with that Jeep, but you didn't. You showed restraint, and then So you bought a TJ,
Yep.
and now we're here a year later. We're
Yeah.
at Killington, and you're about to embark as a driver in
Yeah.
your own Jeep on your first Jeep Jamboree.
Right. Right.
Tell me about what you're feeling about this event.
I'm really nervous. So, I mean, the Jeep that we looked at, and we had, so one of our trail guides had I want to say it was an '03 Rubicon, and he had built it up crazy. I mean, he had modified the whole interior. It wasn't a Jeep for all phases of life. It was a trail Jeep, but I got all amped up about it and I wanted it. And in the end, it was a price point thing. It was more than I wanted to pay. He wanted to wait for his price. And it just solidified the fact that, I had a 2001 X. I wanted a TJ. I didn't want to go new. I wanted to spend, around the $12,000 mark. And I found the right Jeep. I found that '03 Sahara, was beautiful, had a great 4-inch spring lift, really beautiful modification. The guy had done some really nice cleanup work, the LED lights, the winch. I mean, everything was, prime for what I thought, I could bring here to Killington and do a basic ride. And it got us through some amazing, summer beach rides. And so, that's what I thought. I thought I got a great ride. And right now I'm a little bit nervous because it's been raining all day. And now I'm seeing, having been through that ride with you, what my Jeep's going to go through. And I'm not sure it's capable. I've got the all-terrains, not mud terrains. It's got a great lift, and I'm not sure it's got the servitude behind the driver to be able to take it over what it's going to be served with for weather tomorrow. But I'm looking forward to it.
Here's what I can tell you, and I've told you this already, so
Yeah.
this is not news, but my Jeep was stock. Now, granted, it was 20 years newer or so, but
Right.
my Jeep was stock when I did it. It made it through everything. It didn't have to get winched or towed. It made noises that I prefer not to hear, but
I'm
think
sipping my tequila as you say this.
I think that you can prepare yourself for that. The great thing about the Jeep Jamborees is that they're run very well. They're organized very well. The trail guides that go out with each group are so experienced and are there to help you. So basically, all you have to do is listen to the guide and watch the Jeep in front of you,
Right.
which hopefully will be me.
Yes.
And if you see the line that the Jeep in front of you is taking and it's working, then you follow that line.
Right.
And if you see the guy rolling over, then you avoid that line.
Find a new line.
Right. So that's really the best advice I have is watch what's happening in front of you.
Right.
Listen to the guide, but understand that, what the line that you're taking is going to totally dictate how your Jeep's going to handle it. You don't want to ever try to straddle a big obstacle. You want to put a tire over that
On
big
the
obstacle.
obstacle.
But I think what you will come away with after tomorrow, we're here for 2 days.
Right.
So we're going to continue this conversation tomorrow on a part 2. But what I think you will come away with is a new appreciation for your Jeep and also your ability to pilot it over the obstacles. And you'll have a new bond. That was one thing that I developed after doing my first Jeep Jamboree, is this bond I felt with my Jeep, even more than just, enjoying it as a car. I felt like there was some simpatico, after taking it in the woods and tackling obstacles together. Like, okay, come on, we're going to go over this rock now. And I know, we're leaning a lot. And I have video of my son on one of these off-camber angles where he literally crapped his pants. And I have it on a GoPro.
Oh,
And
wow.
there's just it's like 3 seconds where his face turns white and his jaw drops and he clutches the roll bar, and it's a moment frozen in time forever.
That's
and maybe
awesome.
I'll show it on if we make a video of this, which I think we will. But those are the moments that sort of cement your love for your vehicle even
Right.
deeper. So I think you will come away tomorrow with a new appreciation for your vehicle and perhaps a little more confidence in your skills as a driver. And I think that will be the best thing that will come from this.
Right. I think I'm looking forward to taking the whole Jeep thing to a new level. I mean, I loved it. I loved being able to take it on the beach and go the places that most people can't go. And, now I'm looking forward to taking a vehicle that was only 2 years older, so 18 years old, and making it do things, now that I can look back on and feel sort of, young and, where I was when I had my first Jeep.
Yes, there's
You know?
definitely some recapturing of your
Right,
youth that
right.
you feel.
Yeah.
So we will pick this conversation up on part 2
Okay.
tomorrow after your first day.
Yeah.
Knock on wood that everyone drives safely,
And a sip.
and a sip
This-
of
Don Julio
Don
Añejo.
Julio Añejo. We will converse about your first day and the highs and hopefully no lows.
Yes.
Maybe 4 low.
4 low for sure.
4 low for sure.
First gear and God and
we'll see
weather
how
willing.
we'll see how your all-terrain tires do.
Yeah.
All right. For Talk is
Awesome.
Jeep, I'm Art Aldridge.
Tom Chartrand with you. Thank you.
We'll talk to you next time.